out of that house. I'm telling you, when you get pinned up in a house with 4 women, okay, that's my life, right? I have 3 girls. I'm married, for 21 unbelievably happy years. We survived. Not just the snow, not just the traffic, not just the roads. I survived being on estrogen overload for 4 days. Even our dog is a girl, okay? So, it's rough. I mean, we live in a house with 4 women, a female dog, a minivan, a Prius, and I have a mom Jeep, okay? So it is tough. I live in a female world. It's a really, really rough life, but we survived it. I'm thrilled to be out among the living. I got out, and to be honest with you, when I first moved here, it's been a little over 8 years now. When I first moved here, I thought, oh my goodness, they cancel school every time they talk about snow. And they said, okay, it's gonna snow a little bit and maybe get some ice. And at first, for the first year or two, I rolled my eyes, right? Now I'm like, it's snow, boy. I'll just get some milk and bread, be back at home. We're here. And I don't understand what we're gonna do with milk and bread. I'd rather have beer and pizza, but still, I don't know what we're gonna do with it, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, so I'm thrilled to be out among the living. I'm thrilled to be just to be at church. We had to cancel last week, and it was great interruption of kind of the rhythm of busyness, to be honest with you. There was a little bit of just kind of pause for our family, which was really valuable. But I got to be honest with you, I just did not like it. I would rather interrupt other things, but I love being at church. I love being at Journey. I got to be honest with you, this place has ruined me on regular church because every once in a while we'll go to somebody else's church. I won't name anybody of my in-laws. So, but we'll go to church with them and I walk in the door and I'm like, oh, seriously, how do you do this every week? This is so, I don't get it. I love them. I'm thrilled they do it. We don't push away against every other church. We get it. I love them. I just can't do it. But I love this place. I love being here. I love the people here. Everything about it is just exciting and fun to me. And so I'm thrilled to be right back here. Now, 2 weeks ago, we started a series we called All In. Now, if you don't remember, during that series, during the beginning of the series, we talked about dying to ourselves. And so what we're using is, this isn't normal here. If you're here for the first time, you're probably wondering, what's the deal with the baptistry, being up in the front, right in the middle? You guys take this seriously, and we do take it seriously. But this isn't normally here, but this is kind of our guiding illustration. Now, some people would go, all right, well, you're teaching on baptism. Really not, okay? We're really not teaching on baptism. That would be far more technical and far more like some stuff. What we're doing is using the illustration that is baptism. It represents some stuff. It pictures for some things for us. And what we're using is the illustration of baptism and talking about what baptism is really all about going all in our faith. It's not about standing on the periphery. It's not about standing up and sitting down when you're supposed to. It's not about observing some sort of religious task. It's not about the fact that I've had way too much caffeine and I have Yankee words coming out of my mouth really fast. And you guys are going to have to listen good because I've had a little too much caffeine. But so here's the deal. But it's not about just kind of going through all the motions and being a part of things. It's not about getting goosebumps when you sing songs. It's about God having an active participant part in your life, not being somebody you call in during emergencies. It's about going all in your faith. Most of the time, honestly, when churches talk about going all in, we talk about giving. We talk about, we get everybody together and go, all right, listen, so we got to go all in on our faith. And that's not what we're talking about. We're not even remotely talking about money, although this idea affects every part of our life. But when we talk about going all in our faith, it's something that we've got to just grab a hold of, because what the problem for most of us have, and this is what we're really addressing here, the problem that we have in our life, the problem among most Christians today is that our life with Jesus looks very little different from the life that we had before Jesus. If you looked at your life before Jesus and after Jesus, this hour of your life is what looks most different. I'm not pointing fingers at you that I'm not pointing back at myself, but church attendance was the most profound thing that really got changed in most of our lives. We got connected to the idea of church, but we really never made any dramatic changes in our lives. And in fact, in Romans chapter 6, Paul talks about this. And Paul wrote most of the New Testament, so I'm kind of go with his opinion on things a lot of times, mainly because there's not a lot of other opinions in the New Testament anyway. So when he says this, he opens up Romans chapter 6 with these verses we talked about last week. Just the first couple verses say this. What then should we go on sinning just so that we can get, so that God can show us more of his wonderful grace? Of course not. Remember what he's saying here is that we've gotten to this place and he's like, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus, so what do we do now? It's kind of the question that was being asked of him. It's the question that you and I have to ask. It's so, okay, I'm a follower of Jesus. And one day he's going to come back for me. He's going to send it, the sky's going to open up and he's going to come halfway down and the dead in Christ will rise first. It's 1 Thessalonians. But what about now? Should we just go on sinning and doing our own thing? Some of us are like, that's kind of the operational value in my life. Just kind of do it and worry about it later, But the truth is what he says here is of course not. When he says, should I just go on doing what I've always done because God's grace will just I'll give him a chance to give him more grace? He says, of course not. Another translation of the Bible says, hell no, you shouldn't do that. It's ludicrous for us to live out. And you're probably, well, what translation is that? It's called the Cotton Patch Bible. Check it out. It's hilarious. Okay, and it's really good. But check this out. What he's saying is, should we just go on sinning so that we can get more grace? Absolutely not. What he's saying is that's ludicrous. And what we talked about last time we were together, was that the idea, this illustration, this picture of baptism is a picture of us dying to our old self. When we walk into the water and we stand here, we sit here, we get into that place when the guy was behind us with the waders on, whatever your story is, when you were in that position where you were getting ready to, what you're saying is, I'm dying to my old self. Now, I introduced you to my old self. We talk a lot about our old self, but I showed you my old self 2 weeks ago. His arm's fallen off. In fact, we're gonna lose the arm. Okay, so this is my old self. Now, we talk about, how we have our old self around us all the time, but when we give our life to Jesus, this is the life we give. We give the old life, the life of us that was crippled in sin, the life of us that was lost, the life of us that was just kind of weighed down. Now, here's the problem that every single one of us have. Me first, right? I have the same problem, is that I didn't put this one to death as much as I kind of hold on to him, I keep him around, I wag him, I make decisions with him, and I try to hide him when it comes to church. I try to keep him at bay. We're a church that doesn't mind if you dress however you dress. I said it on our Facebook Live thing this morning. I was talking whatever you're wearing at this moment. It was 7:30 in the morning. Some of you are like, no, I'm not wearing that. Okay. So, and if you don't have clothes on, you need to not wear that because our only dress code is please do. Okay. So, but here's the thing, we say, I try to hide the old me when I come to church. I try to dress him up and make him look good. But man, when the business decisions come out, man, I can put the old me on. Or I try to hide him when I'm around my Christian friends, but man, when my wife blows up at me, this is the old me comes out. And my excuses are a lot, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, my excuses are a lot like, man, that's just the way I am. It's the old me. That's just the way I talk. It's the old me. That's just the way I live. It's the way I've always been. It's the way my dad was. That's the old me. The problem is we wind up living that. And what Paul's asking here is, should I just go on living like this rules my life, even though it doesn't anymore, just so I can get more grace? What he's saying is that's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. That's crazy talk that you would even consider living the old way, because you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to be stuck in that. And so when he says that, of course not. Since we have died to sin, how can we continue to live in it? That's a big deal. It's a good question, isn't it? If we've died to sin, how can we continue to live in it? So we talked about that 2 weeks ago, where you get in the water. That is the example. It's the outward expression of this is the case in my life. I want to die to everything that is who I was. This is the way that we profess Christ. This is the way that we get in here and we say, listen, I don't want to be the old me anymore. I want to die to the old me. And then what happens? Then they put you under the water and you don't get to experience most of it. Right? I always tell people, I'm like, look, here's how this goes, okay? You're going to walk in here, there's a little step, you step down here, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder, and I'm going to say some things. We're going to talk a little bit. And I ask you a couple of questions, and I ask you to repeat after me. So they repeat after me, and I said, here's what's going to happen. After you say that, after you say, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and I accept him as my Lord and Savior, I'm going to put my hand on your back. I'm going to put one hand on top of your hand. I'm going to put the other hand right here. I want to pinch your hand, and you're in control of your air. And then I say this. I'm going to say, I baptize you now in the name of the, that's what it's going to sound like to you. Because, that's what we're doing, right? We put you underwater. Now, you're probably going, what's up with that? Why is it that why do we do this whole thing? Have you ever had that question? I mean, if you're being honest, you don't have to raise your hand because we don't ever really express that in church, do we? Have you ever wondered, I get communion, I get the little bread piece represents the body of Jesus. I get the grape juice that, represents the blood of Jesus. We get those kinds of examples. But have you ever wondered about this one? I get into the water, and I don't understand why I get in the water, but apparently you got to go underneath the water, and you can't, people get really fired up about this stuff, right? You can't sprinkle them, you can't dash them, you can't flick water at them, you can't, put them partway under the water. I mean, there are some people who get really fired up, if your elbow doesn't go in, you got to get a do-over, It's a big deal. I watched on Facebook a couple weeks ago where somebody went they had to get chainsaws and cut a hole in the ice so they go in the water. And I'm like, dude, I can wait till spring. I'm not getting, there's a part of me that just freaks out. I'm like, man, that's awful cold, But going all in, what happens next? Why do we have to go under the water? And that's what Paul addresses next when he says this. Should I go on sinning just so that I can get more grace? Certainly not. Or have you forgotten that when we died to sin? And here's what he says in the next verse. He says this, or have you forgotten that you were joined with Christ in baptism? We joined him in his death, for we died and were buried with Christ in baptism. Look what he's saying here. There's this beautiful picture of what it means to go all in. Because Jesus didn't just express his idea of love, right? He didn't go, I kind of like you guys. You mean a lot to me. You're great, He didn't say that and feel it. He didn't go, I just feel so close to you. I love you. What the Bible says is that God demonstrated his love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, Romans 5:8. That he loved us so much that he put his actions behind his words. He didn't just feel love for us. He didn't just think love for us. He put love in motion. Love is not an adjective to God. Love is a verb. It's an action verb. When he says, I demonstrated my love for you, and that while you were still sinning, I died for you and was buried. Now here's the thing that we're struggling through today, is that we bury our old selves. The picture that happens in baptism is us taking that old person of us and putting him under the ground and saying, you're done, right? Now, how many of us have ever been to a funeral? Seriously, show of hands, wake up. Okay, you ever been to a funeral? It's kind of a creepy question to ask, okay? You're a little afraid about what's going to happen next, right? Anybody ever gone to a funeral and the person that you went to see in the funeral went home with you, right? I mean, not counting cremation, right? But you don't bury them and then dig them back up and take them home, right? I mean, the point of this is to some of you are like, oh, that's terrible. Yes, it is. I get it. It's terrible. But wouldn't that exactly be the way we live out our lives? We bury the old self, and then we're like, hey, wait just a second before you guys run to the car and go get that lunch. I just need to take him with me. Because, and that a little, somebody thought that was really funny. But, I like whoever that was. Okay, so here's the deal. Isn't that how we do this? We bury the old self, and then we're like, yeah, but I kind of want to keep him with me. I want to whack him around. Not that I want to use him every day. I just want to use him when I need to, I want to have the old me when I go out drinking with my friends. I want to have the old me when I get in a fight with somebody. I want to have the old me when I make business decisions. But I don't really want to have the old me at church and kind of run those things. So we just dig up and carry around the old, dead me. Now, here's the thing that we've got to struggle with. Is that most of us have gone at some point in our life, if we have faith as at all a part of our story, we've gone, hey, at some point, I gotta take this thing seriously, this 2018 is gonna be a big year for me in my faith. I'm gonna get serious about my faith, and I'm gonna stop smoking and drinking and chewing and hanging out with girls that chew and all the other, I'm gonna stop doing all the things that those people do, And we kind of get serious about it, and we kind of boil it all down to the stuff we do, don't we? Or the way we look. We like that one too, Or at least in the 80s, we like that one. In the 80s, men, like we had long hair, guys had long hair. I grew my hair out. I had the mullet, right? I had a mullet, then God took it away from me. He's like, look, if you're not going to use it responsibly, I'm taking it away. So, but that's kind of how it goes. Like, we got to go, like, the Christians got all fired up about that stuff. Men can't have long hair. And so we get into like, okay, you got to look a certain way. You got to have a certain kind of hairstyle. You got to have certain kinds of clothes. You got to fit in with the with the church. You got to do all the right stuff, right? We have a tendency to kind of accept Jesus and then go, I'm going to kill the old me and I'm going to just take it all into my control. Now, here's this kind of strange and beautiful tension that exists in Christianity. The great mystery of our faith is, and we talked about this before, the great mystery of our faith is that sin is powerless over us entirely because of God's power. But sin's presence in us is contingent or conditional on us. Now, it's not something that we take into our own possession and we go, okay, this year I'm going to take it seriously and I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to do those things and I'm not going to do those things and I'm going to fit into the rigid little boxes that the church makes for me, right? That's not what I'm talking about. That's our human approach to getting rid of the old us. But guess what? More times than not, when we take the human approach, we wind up digging up, putting him back on our back and he's just dirty and hanging there, right? Instead of putting him to rest and saying, that's the old me. The only way that we can ever put the old us to death, the only way we can ever shake the old us is to begin by burying our self-efficiency, right? Our self-sufficiency, like this, I can do this by myself. Now listen, I know there are a good number, how many of you would proudly call yourself a redneck man, right? Good, honestly, show me. I mean, yeah, some of you are like, that's me. I got a big truck. I got big tires. I could fix anything with duct tape and a fork, right? Like it doesn't, whatever it is. But you know, when we talk about doing things on our own power, and I mean, that's thin ice, isn't it, guys? Because we don't like to need anybody. Now, one of the things I love most about being in West Tennessee is that if I break down on the side of the highway, I'm going to have to tell whoever I'm on the phone with to get help to hold on 15 times while I tell everybody who passes me in a truck that I got it taken care of, right? You break down the side of the highway and everybody's going to stop to help you. They'll do whatever because you, as a culture here, I love this. As a culture, we're more than glad to stop whatever we're doing and help somebody else out. But man, don't need help here. You'll never tell anybody, right? I mean, you'll be the first guy that 15 people call, but the last guy who calls somebody for help. That's the problem that stands between us, especially us men, that stands between us and being able to really get rid of the old self. Barry is the I can do it on my own syndrome. I can take care of it. I can do this. I'll just do it myself. I've got the willpower, the staying power. I'm smart. I'm logical. I'm intentional. I've got it under control. And that is probably the biggest part of our old self that lives in most of us. And the truth is, especially guys, and it's not just guys, but especially guys, we kind of wag that thing around, and some of us are even proud of it. I don't need help. I'm good. I got this taken care of. Don't bother with me. Man, the day when I come and visit you in the hospital or something, and I walk through the door and you act like I insulted you. That, hey, I don't need prayer. I'm good, man. I've got this taken care of. It's just no big deal. It's just a leg. It's not that big. I got another one just like it. It'll be okay in a minute. You know, like it's how it is. I mean, let you break down the side of the road, and you think it was like a mark of shame that somebody offer you help. You know, the truth of it is, in our lives, that's the biggest tragedy ever. It's not something to be proud of. It's something that we need to surrender to Jesus. It's what Philippians chapter 4 says. And he talks about this, and I talked about it last week when we did the live cast online. Philippians chapter 4 says this about verse 13 to 15. It says that Paul says, I know how to live on almost nothing, or I know how to live with everything. I've learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or an empty one, with plenty or with little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. What we kind of forget when he talks about there is he's using, in a lot of ways, an example of full stomach or empty stomach, right? He's using this like, I know what it's like to have enough and I know what it's like to want. And in every way I can do all of those circumstances through Jesus. And what it applies to our life isn't so much always, I know where the next meal is coming from, or I know that I've got enough to eat or not enough to eat. What it means for us, what it applies to us today is that, do you feel like you've got all that it takes to overcome that sin in your life? You feel like you've got everything you need? Feel like you're in want of more? What he says is, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. What we usually do is we take that verse out of what we call context, right? We just take, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, and I can like pull it out of the Bible and skip all the stuff that's around it. And we pull that out of context, and we use it to think like, I can leap tall buildings in a single bound, right? I can do whatever I want to do in Jesus, and I'll be able to do it. Like I could lift this building up, or I could do this, or I can take on sin on my own. I can do all things, but we forget the through Jesus Christ part. The first thing that's got to die in our life if we really want to walk with Jesus, if we want to go all in our faith, the first thing that's got to die, be buried, and stay buried is our self-sufficiency. People often ask me, I was buried. I was baptized when I was a kid. I was a teenager. I was baptized when I was 22. It's been a long time since then, and I did it, and I don't know what it really meant, and I'm not sure, should I get baptized again? I get this tension, this question a lot. And a lot of times I answer it this way. It's the same way I answer this question. How will I know if I'm ready to be baptized? And maybe that's a question you're asking today. Am I ready to be baptized? Let me just ask the same question of both of you. When you were baptized, or when you're considering it, you should think of this question. Are you ready to give up living your life on your own? Are you ready to not be the one who lives your life anymore? Now, if you were baptized when you were a kid and that wasn't your story, you're like, I don't know, I just got in the water because I was supposed to and everybody else was doing it, then man, I'm not saying that wasn't a valuable step. I'm just saying that wasn't this one. Here's the thing. We've got to have this place in our life where we publicly profess, Jesus, I no longer want to live my own life. I want you to live it for me. I can do all things through Jesus. I can defeat that mess in my life. Now, here's the question I have for you. If you're kind of saying, I've got what it takes. I can handle this porn thing. I can handle this drinking thing. I can handle this fill in the blank thing, whatever that thing is, right? If I can handle this thing, and you say, how's it going for you? You got it? I mean, is it really going away? My guess is no. My guess is it's like everybody else in this room. It's the exact same story, right? It goes away for a little while, and guess what? It comes back. You get kind of a handle on it for a little while, and it goes away, and it kind of goes down a little bit, and then it comes back. How's that anxiety thing going? How's that insecurity thing going? How's that anger thing going? How's that lust thing going? Or is it more like this? You pushed it under the surface and it came out somewhere else. You said, I'm not gonna lust anymore, and you pushed it down and it came out as anger, right? Or you pushed down that insecurity and it came out as depression, right? Isn't that what happens in our lives more often than not when we do things on our own will? We just push the beach ball underneath the water, and as soon as we take our hands off of it, it comes right back up. Jesus said there's freedom from that. I mean, in the great word room, you hear a lot of people going, Doctor, I'm in pain. Can you help me not be in pain? And that's the problem that most of us have, is that we're not looking at how we got into what we got. We're not looking at the things, the systems and the processes and the ways of thinking in our life that carry us down roads that take us away from Jesus. We live a largely unexamined life. We cannot fight sin in our life the same way the world fights things that just take them away, right? The same way the world fights things that are uncomfortable. Discomfort in our life is likely there because we need to figure out a way to behave differently. We need to find a rock to crawl under and shed the old shell so that God can provide a new one. In fact, 2 Corinthians, I love how this passage says this. 2 Corinthians 3 says, we are human, but we don't wage war as humans do. What he's saying is like, you're part of this world. You're human just like everybody else, but you and I, because we're followers of Jesus, we have a new resource in our examining of our lives. We don't fight, we don't wage war with as humans do. We use God's mighty weapon, not worldly weapons, to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and destroy false arguments. We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. Look at this. We capture their rebellious thoughts and we teach them to obey Christ. Through Jesus, we have the power to be able to capture every thought. And another translation says, take captive every thought and force it into obedience to Jesus. We have a significant power in the examination of our life and in the value of people around us. So here's the bottom line. When we kind of run through this whole thing, we get to this place at the end of it where we're like, man, I want to go all in. I want to die to my sin. I want to bury the old me. I want to live out. This is what this is really all about. This is weird, right? You get into the water and you die to your old self. You go under the water and you bury your old self. And when we leave the water, we live out our death. Isn't that weird? I mean, it's kind of a strange picture, isn't it? Living out your death. That's really what the all-in life is about living out, dying to yourself, peeling off those things, those ways of thinking, those patterns of behavior, that process in our mind that takes us away from Jesus rather than closer to him. We live out our death. So you're probably asking how. I would be. Let me just kind of give you a couple of next steps that'll help you kind of give you like ways to put tennis shoes on this and go live it out in your life. The first thing is, it's just like this picture of baptism. This process of baptism, or this picture that we have here, is really, it starts with admitting that you can't do it by yourself. Now, maybe a lot of you are in this position where you're going, man, I don't know. You know, when I got baptized when I was 8 or 10 or 12 years old or whatever, and I gave my life to Jesus, and I did this thing and got baptized, and I'm now in my 30s or 40s, and it's just kind of got this thing, and I don't know, should I get baptized again? Or maybe you're in a place where you're going, I've never been baptized in my life. Should I get baptized? Here's the answer. And I don't know this is really that simple or that helpful to you, but here, I just want to give you this. When people ask me, should I get baptized? I tell them this one simple answer. They'll ask, am I ready to get baptized? I just say, hey, you know what? You're ready to get baptized when you're ready to give up controlling your life. You're ready to get baptized when you're willing to say, I don't want to control my life anymore. I want to die to that old me, and I want to give it to Jesus. You're ready to get baptized when you're ready to stop controlling your life. Now, you might look back and go, yep, that's what I meant. That's awesome. Keep moving forward. You might look back and go, man, I just did it because I wanted to fit in. Man, it's what you need to do next is really between you and God. It's not between you and me or anybody else. It's between you and God. And if you need to make a public profession to stand up and say, you know what, I want to die to my old self, I want to bury my old self, and I want to walk and live out my death, then man, that's fantastic. We want to help you with that. So if that's your next step, then Bryce will be over here. He'll mention this at the end, but he'll be over here on the side, and he would love to have a conversation with you and help you take that next step toward Jesus. Second thing, if you're here and you're going, man, I don't know, what do I got to do about this examined life thing? I want to help you with this. If you want to take your next step in your examined life, living an examined life is like being a parent, okay? When your kids were little and they smell, you go, I smell something. I smell something funny. You go over and you pick them up, right? You pick them up and you do what every parent does. You stick their butt in your face and you go, right? Because parenting is an examined life, right? You pick your kid up and you smell what stinks and you're like, you stink, go play, right? No, you don't do that. A good parent knows there's something that stinks in their kids and then sticks around long enough to help them fix it. Who do you know in your life who will smell when your stuff stinks and stick around long enough to help you change it? Because if you don't have somebody in your life who will help you understand that your stuff stinks and will stick around long enough to help you change it, then you need to find somebody. If the people in your life will tell you that your stuff stinks and then not stick around, those are not people in your life you need. If your people in your life won't tell you when you stink, those are not people you need in your life. You need people who will identify the things that stink in your life and then stuck around long enough to help you fix it through Jesus. Because through him, we can do all things through Jesus Christ, who gives me strength. Bryce is going to come and tell you about some stuff you can do to take your next step.